When it comes to what gear gives the best bang for the buck, these alternatives are often mentioned. I totally agree with them being very budget friendly, even if the BRS 3000T is kind of a love and hate kind of stove, where some say it is dangerous, while others hikes entire through hikes with it. But today we will dig deeper and talk about the big three: the backpack, the tent and sleep system, and in the end, as a bonus, the cook system, to give you kind of a budget start set for new hikers that doesn't cost a fortune and that will not weigh you down. All the gear choices presented will be based on the price, the weight and the bulk. And all gear will be trail proven gear and what I believe to be the best bang for the buck, and not only for ultralight hikers, so stay tuned. One important question that we have to ask ourselves is, what is budget gear? Because it much depends on where you live and where it's from. Gear from the US can be a really good budget-friendly option if you live in the US, but here in Europe they can be super pricey. The focus for today is therefore gear possible to buy everywhere from local suppliers or Amazon, making it possible to buy without the need of paying expensive transports and customs. And above all, that they are trail proven, so that you don't buy gear that later turns out to be real crap. You can therefore in this episode find gear that are really cheap and some cheap for what you get. A kind of a mix between low budget and just budget. Let's get to it. First of all, backpacks. Not because you buy them first, because you shouldn't, but because backpacks and backpacking are kind of synonymous. And first and foremost, don't buy a backpack that you haven't tried out or can't return. No matter if it's a cheap one or an expensive one, how a backpack fits is a very personal thing. And what fits someone else might not fit you. So try out in a store or at home before you commit into the choice of backpack. For this episode I've chosen backpacks with a volume of 60 liters, because 60 liters I believe is big enough for you who are not only using lightweight gear, and not too big for you who have come a little bit further in the journey towards a lighter pack. And the first one up is Granite Gear Crown 2. At 1 to 1 kilo, depending on what torso length you choose, and possible to buy in a unisex version as well as a women's version, which is great. It costs about 2,300 Swedish at retailers and about $229 full price on Granite Gear's website. The Crown 2 is also available at Amazon, as well as on local suppliers in the whole Europe, as well as in the US. Of course. What I like about this pack is, beside the weight, is the possibility to remove the brain and the roll top closure. And the only downside as I see it is this somewhat low maximum weight. Only 15 kilo is recommended being the max, but if that is enough, you will get a nice and comfortable pack at a really good price. Our second backpack has a much higher rating when it comes to the maximum weight, and as much as 24 kilos. The Exped Lightning 60. It is a top-mounted backpack available in both a men and a women's version, with an adjustable carry system to fit any back size. And you can often see it on sale for about 2,200 Swedish or lower, but the full price is about 2,400 Swedish. It is available from a lot of different suppliers in Sweden, at Ultralight Outdoor Gear in the UK, and on most Amazon sites. It is a very popular pack that I see a lot of people are using. I had the idea to only focus on 2 backpacks, but I also wanted to tell you about a Swedish manufacturer now producing lighter packs with a very good result. Lundhags. Not sure about the availability, but the Lundhags Pudgy Light 60 liter at 1100 grams with a capacity of 20 kilos is totally worth checking out. Lundhags is famous for producing high quality gear, so I'm sure that you will get a really good backpack for that price. When it comes to tents, it is difficult, because the choice is based on where and when you hike, and no perfect tent exists to cover all of your needs on all of your hikes. If going out in the middle of the summer in a forest well protected from the elements is a completely different story compared to a mountain hike in September, when there's a risk of higher winds and heavy rains combined with a lower temperature and a more exposed environment. So when you know what you need, then find yourself some alternatives and compare the types, the fabrics, the space, the sizes, and finally the price. The first tent up is a tent that comes very close to a tent that can do it all. And one tent that you can't skip mentioning when you're talking about budget-friendly tents. It's a little bit boring perhaps, and I wanted to avoid talking about it, but I just can't. Lanchan. The Lanchan is a ridgeline tent for 1 or 2 people and comes in a regular or a pro version, where the regular is a double wall tent and the pro a single wall. There is also some differences in the choice of fabrics. The lightest option is the One Pro at 690 grams and the heaviest is the 2-person regular at 1060 grams. The cheapest option is the 1-person regular that retails for $137 and weighs in at 770 grams, with free shipping all over the world. A lot of people have tried this tent in a lot of different weather and different locations and swear by it being fully capable of handling bad weather if pitched right. No other tent comes close for being the best value for the money spent. That is the truth. If you prefer a freestanding tent, you can't find an equally good option for that price. Some people recommend the Nature Hike Cloud Up 1 or 2 as a good alternative, but to be honest, if you need a cheap tent now, go for the Lanchan and then save up a little bit of money and upgrade in the future. Then look at tents from Dan Thurston, Big Agnes, Top Tents or Nordisk here in Scandinavia that has tents that is the next level quality tents without being extremely expensive. Or try to find one on sale, or even better, buy used gear. The sleep system is at least 2 parts, the sleeping bag or quilt together with the sleeping pad. You might want to add a pillow and sometimes also some protection underneath your pad, but let's stick to the basics and the 2 need to have. And things to look for when choosing a bag and a pad is the temperature rating. For bags, choose one with 1 or 2 degrees lower comfort temperature compared to the lowest temperature expected. And for the pad it is a little bit more difficult because here you don't have any temperature rating. Here you find an insulation value instead named R value. So here are a few recommendations to follow. If buying only 1 pad for 3-season hiking and you're expecting maybe temperatures down to -3 degrees Celsius up to summertime hot, then choose a pad with an R value of 4 or higher. It only reflects your body temperature, so a higher rated pad is okay also for warmer conditions. A warm sleeper can get away with less R and a cold sleeper like me needs a little bit more R. But as a general recommendation, I would say this to be okay. For the bags and the pads, I recommend you looking at the best value for the money spent and not go for the cheapest option that you can find. This is a safety measure and that will also give you a better night's sleep, and that is important. For sleeping bags, I recommend Cumulus equipment from Poland. They have a good quality gear that doesn't cost a fortune. The best bang for the buck from Cumulus is the light line sleeping bags, and the 300 hits the sweet spot with a comfort rating of +4 degrees and weighs in at only 600 grams. If it gets colder, you can always layer up with a thicker fleece or a puffy or a top quilt. These are not for free, but for €295 you'll get a high quality gear at a fraction of the price compared to many other brands. But if you don't have the money to spend, or if you don't like using down, you can always check out the synthetic options. The Intense with the same comfort rating that weighs in at 810 grams and €50 cheaper. And when it comes to pads, I never recommend self-inflating sleeping pads because the lack of comfort. Instead, I always recommend inflatable pads. And here Xpad has a lot of good options. The Xpad Synmat Basic with an R value of 3.7 is kind of an entry pad, starting at 1000 Swedish or like €100, but they have a lot of different types and often on sale, so look for a pad with a good R from Xpad on sale and preferably a wide version. That makes a big difference in my opinion. If you buy a pad with an R value of only 3.7, just like the Synmat, you can always add a foam pad underneath for added R and get up to 4 to 5 for the colder days. The one thing we have left is the Cookset, and here much depends on what you want to eat. The lightest way to go is freeze-dried food, and then you only need to boil water. And since going simple and light when it comes to Cookset means going cheap, we will focus on just boiling water for today. And the cheapest and lightest way to go, many say, including me, is a canister stove like the BRS 3000T. It is super famous for being light and cheap, and the only thing you need to add then is a pot. But today I will step out of my comfort zone and open my eyes a little bit wider and suggest something else. A new Cookset from a Swedish manufacturer called Tranga. Yep, Tranga. They have recently released a new and ultralight and ultra cheap option called the Tranga Micro Light. It is a gel fused based system that includes a 500 milliliter pot, a windshield and a small gel stove. All of this at 188 grams and for only 358 Swedish or about $35. I believe for that kind of money you get a lot. And I actually bought one.
Ta-da!
For my own money to try out. I will next week do a review and comparison to my other ultralight and cheap options and see about the fuel efficiency, how it performs in perfect conditions and in the cold and the wind. So don't miss out on next week's episode. Now, if you buy all of this gear, the Granite Gear Crown 2 backpack, the Lanshan regular one-person tent, the Cumulus Lightline 300 sleeping bag, the Exped Cinmat and the Tranga Micro Light, you pay for the big three, including a Cookset, less than 7,000 Swedish crowns or less than $650. And the total weight for the big three is about 3.2 kilos, and if you then also add the Cookset, about 3.4 kilos. I know it's a lot of money to spend if you need to buy all at once, but you get a lot of good gear for that kind of money, and gear available in most parts, I think. So, what do you say? Is this a good start set for beginners and those not interested in lighter gear? Or is this only something that would be interesting for those interested to go as light as possible? Well, give me your thoughts by leaving a comment. But for now, this is it, and if you liked today's episode, take a look at these two recommendations on my other videos. Also do hit like, subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on any future content. I hope to see you again next week, but for now, take care, safe hiking and bye bye.